Can you elaborate on the Galactics?
Yeah.
On-
For any of you that don't know me, like about 7 or 8 years ago, I was taken into the inner earth and I started communicating with those beings and receiving information from them, being downloaded with everything that I was meant to do to help with this process. And so they were some of my first contacts. And then after spending a couple years being briefed by them and brought up to speed, I started getting contacted by beings that are above the planet. And so I call them in my personal life, I call them spirit because that's really just a way to it's a kind of a blanket thing. They're not male or female or individual or plural. They're beings that are contributing. But when I started to receive and connect more in with them, they are basically ascended masters. They appear to me as ascended masters. So ones that we would be familiar with. So and our main contacts up there is like the head of the Galactic Federation, let's say, the ones that are sitting on top of that federation. Those are the ones that are downloading information to us. So I'm getting information from above, from them. I'm getting information from below, from the inner Earth beings, and I'm also getting information from military personnel that are able to push things remotely.
and this is both through telepathic and in physical.
Yeah, I'm getting physical contact. I'm getting and but most days it's a telepathic connection and and they're sending me images via like remote viewing. So I'm getting so on a daily basis, that's how the information is coming through. It's through my head. And then we're able to confirm and validate it with stuff that shows up on the news and from our intel sources here on the ground. And sometimes the information that I'm getting from the Galactics is ahead of what the military and in, intelligence agencies have on the ground.
Can you list those groups,
Which groups?
the Galactics, who they are, the names?
Well, I've again, there are ascended masters that you might recognize, like Jesus and Saint Germain and the Babas and El Moria and those types of characters, the Lady Masters like Lady Master Venus and Mary Magdalene, and then there are also a host of other beings that I could not tell you who they are. They're just and they're non-human. So I have to filter the information. If it feels, you can telepathy is kind of a language, it's a language of feelings. So that's how I can tell if the information is accurate or if this is someone trying to mislead me or if their energy is not positive. It's very easy to detect. So I mean I had an interaction with a being that I believe is some sort of elemental being out there. I don't know where they come from in the multiverse. I don't always ask. Honestly, I'm just getting information and seeing if it works. But this one had fire for a face. I mean, it had distinguishable features, but it was just like a flame on the head, and
Fire.
and the energy was really intense, and it was like he was shouting at me, and so I declined to interact with this person. I
Well,
also
we've also been told those are jinns. That description fits jinns.
Yeah, and I also interacted with some little characters. They look kind of like the bankers that run the banks in Harry Potter. They're kind of like a mix between a goblin and Yoda, and they represented themselves as they come from a planet that's basically like a banking, like a vault planet. Where they store wealth, and that some of their people had gotten away and had or broken away, and they were responsible for some of the bad things that had happened here. And so they were coming forward to try and assist the Federation and assist the Alliance to take down their breakaway civilization that had contributed to negative things on the planet. So yeah, there's a different mix of people. I've interacted with golden beings, um, which are, very high dimensional beings that
Is that
really.
is that the golden triangle that Corey Good talked about?
No, no, these don't have triangle faces. The golden beings are. I actually have a photo of one that I can share with you, Dan. And
Yeah.
they look. They're basically like golden beings of light. It's just totally golden. They don't seem to have a gender or an age or anything. Their bodies are robes, but they're also bodies, and they're just a beaming light, and they just put out this really pure, unconditional love that comes from them. They're about 30 feet tall, I would say. I sat in the lap of one, and I was like a baby to this being, so I would say they're probably around 30 feet tall, um, and very positive in their energy.
So now that we're on the galactic topic here, some people want to hear that you got actually validation on this. So let's go through some of the stuff that actually came true that you talked about before.
Okay, so let's start with this one because this one's kind of recent. So, um, well, we talked about the measles thing, and then, or we talked about the pandemic, and then we started to see one. And so, one of the other things is they've been talking for quite some time, the last few years, a lot about their disdain for the Vatican and the stuff that they've been doing. And so they've said to me that they have them in their crosshairs. They said that they're going to be reduced to rubble if they don't capitulate with the New World Plan. And then right after the Notre Dame fire happened, they said to me that was us. We did that. So as in the Alliance was responsible for it. So and they said they were sending a message to the Pope with this, and that they were shutting down the catacombs. And then shortly after that, I saw a video of somebody outlining basically there's a ritual that happens that day, mass human sacrifice, and something about the catacombs under Europe. So there was a confirmation and validation that really was what was going on there, and that was a maneuver from the Alliance. And so the subsequent attacks that happened after that on the Christian churches and were a backlash for having interrupted this process. So that was one. A few nights, or I guess few months ago, I was woken up in the middle of the night, and they started to outline to me a nuclear deal. So I'll say this: when these messages come in, they're not always very clear. It's not like you have a voice just talking to you, like you're having a phone conversation. You'll get images, feelings, and words, and you kind of have to piece them together. So what they showed me an image of Putin. They showed me an image of basically cooling towers, which are on a nuclear plant, to let me know that this was a nuclear deal. And they told me there was going to be a nuclear deal between Russia and the United States and one other Asian country. And they showed me a flag, which I looked up, and it was the flag of China. And they said it was, this deal was going to happen, and that it would be really good for the people. So just last week, Trump met with Putin, and I will say one other thing spoke to him. And one other thing that they told me to look for was the fall of Maduro as being a pivotal point for the alliance. So there's something going on in Venezuela that the deep state wants to keep that going. They don't want it to end. And so they're saying that the end of the fall of Maduro is a major turning point. So when Putin and Trump spoke, one of the topics was what they could do on a humanitarian level to help the people of Venezuela. So we're moving in that direction. That's confirmation for me. They also spoke about a nuclear deal between Russia, China, and the United States, and having to do with and that being a positive positive move forward. So we've got that nuclear deal. And then now I don't know if this is an energy deal, as in it's about future energy, or if it's about dismantling the nuclear programs of the past. So that's what's unclear about that when they showed me the cooling tower. So they could have just shown me a bomb, but I wouldn't really know the difference between what's a nuclear bomb and what's a regular bomb. So they showed me these cooling towers, so that I know it had something to do with nuclear power. Now, so they said, so this is what they said, and I'm sorry, let me just back. Sorry, there's a lot of information. So they told me this deal was going to happen, which we saw happen. We're seeing the beginning stages of it. They also told me that there would be a new world trade deal, and that this new world trade deal would be very beneficial for the population, and that it would mark, the beginning of a new global economy that was positive, that people could participate in, that wasn't predatory. And so that was another thing that was discussed during that meeting with Putin and Trump, that there is a new trade deal going on, and China and Russia are a part of it. And so another thing that they had told me, and this went against some of the military intel that we had, was that after the last meeting with Kim Jong-un, not this last one that happened between Kim Jong-un and Putin, but the one that happened prior, where Trump was overseas meeting with them, that ended abruptly. They said, this is not the end of these peace deals. This is not the end of these peace talks. It's not over. This is just it's either for optics, because there's something going on behind the scenes that they want to keep private, or it's just a minor setback. So that it will go back on track, and that North Korea would uphold their end and disarm their nuclear weapons and be part of a peace treaty that will end up being global.
Awesome. I gotta ask about. We also talked about the Justin Trudeau controversy.
Yes, they had highlighted to me in a reading that I was doing for a Canadian person, that Justin Trudeau is going to face some sort of scandal that would, disgrace him. They didn't say if it would get him out of power, but they did say basically there would be somebody else coming in after, and that somebody else would be more like the Canadian Trump, and it would be moving things for Canadians in the right direction, and that this would actually end up in a boost for their economy. And they said eventually Canada would be outside of the crown rule, that they would be, for the first time in history, an independent nation. Now, funny enough that you brought this up, because yesterday when I was channeling, they showed me Australia, and they said something about the Australian Prime Minister. I think they have a Prime Minister down there, being also caught in a scandal, and I think it has something to do with child trafficking down there, or pedophilia rings, and saying that this was the initiation for ending the crown dominance over any other country. So basically they were saying that no one family, no one bloodline, no one person has the right to rule over anybody else or hoard wealth that is not elected or a representative of the people. So this is the beginning of a dismantling of this. And so Canada is a territory of the crown, as well as Australia. So we did see Justin Trudeau get caught up in this scandal, like it was predicted by Spirit. And now I believe we're starting to see the beginning stages of the rest of this dismantling.